Hey, and welcome to a new episode of Worlds Collide, the podcast where I talk to people who moved abroad. I am your host, Viktoria, and I'm so glad that you tuned in today. So today is another first. This episode is about moving to Croatia. But before we start, I just wanted to let you know that there are two ways of supporting this podcast. So one is you could just leave me a 5-star rating wherever you listen to this podcast, because more reviews, more stars always help to get new people to check it out. And then another way how you could support this podcast is buy me a coffee. So I just signed up for Buy Me a Coffee a couple of weeks ago. And let's say you buy me a cup of coffee or whatever, half a cup of coffee, or maybe like 2 cups of coffee. I make sure that I'm super energized to always bring you new episodes, because making a podcast takes a lot of time. But it's fun. I love it. The link for Buy Me a Coffee is buymeacoffee.com/worldscollidepod, and you will find it in the show notes. And however you want to support this podcast, I'm super happy that you're doing it. I'm just glad that you're here and listen. All right, so this podcast episode is about moving to Croatia. I just said it a minute ago. My guest is Sara, and she moved to Croatia a while ago. And since then, she also started her business that we talk about. It will help you to relocate to Croatia. We will hear her story first, and it's super interesting. So stay and listen to Sara's story. Here it is. All right. So my guest today is Sara. Hey, how are you?
Hi, Victoria. I'm doing very well. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. I am very excited. So tell me, where are you right now?
Right now, I am in Split, Croatia in my home office.
You are in Croatia for how many years?
It'll be 13 years in May.
Okay. And how come you chose, or how come you ended up in Croatia?
Well, it's a bit of a long journey that brought me here to Croatia. I can't say in some ways it was planned, in other ways it wasn't planned at all. But I wanted to live in Europe since I was a child. Like my earliest memory, I was in the 4th grade and I did this report on Greece, and I just knew I wanted to live on the European continent. And so I kind of, started doing things throughout my life to try and move over here. And I did live in Amsterdam in 2008 and 2009, and then they made me leave because I was American and I had no right to be there.
Okay.
So I came back to America to try and regroup and figure out another plan. And I was there for 3 years. And then I was like, okay, it's time to try and go back to Europe. And I couldn't keep my job with my American company. So I thought, okay, well, how about I start my own freelance business in web development? That's what my background was in. But if I'm going to do that, then I want to go to a country in Europe that has a low cost of living. So that way, if I screw it up, work, it'll just be a long vacation. And also I won't completely lose tons of money. So that's why I chose Croatia. But I've got to say, another part of it is I didn't even know Croatia was a country until the year before. I was
okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for being honest.
Well, yeah, I'm being very honest. I can't say the Texas education system was superb, but I learned about Croatia from a blog post. I was researching a trip to Italy, and I came across a blog post by this American couple that was talking about Croatia and how they loved it way more than Italy because it was cheaper, more beautiful. The people were nicer. The country was more beautiful. And I was like, what is this paradise place that I've never heard of before? And so I went there for 10 days in August 2011, and then I moved here in May 2012.
Okay, so did you fall in love then when you visited?
I did. I can't say that. I came here and I really enjoyed it. I didn't know at that time that I didn't think at the time like, oh, I could live here. Oh, I've got to move here. It wasn't until some months later when I was trying to figure out where to go that I was like, you know what, I should try out Croatia. And then 3 days after I moved here, that's when I was like, yes, I can do it. Because I was going back through some old emails this past year for a project I was working on. And I sent an email to a friend 3 days after I moved here. And it said, I think I'm going to live here for the next few months, but honestly, I could live here the rest of my life.
Oh, do you remember why?
I want to say, because it's been 13 years now.
No, it's a long time, yeah.
But my guess is there's two things that really stuck out to me. So one was the Croatian people. They were so kind. I mean, these were complete strangers. I didn't know anybody or anything about this country at all. I had no connections, no knowledge. And I just felt like Croatians were the ones that I interacted with were bending over backwards to help me find a home, how to open my company. There's a story I tell often about this man that I ran into when I was walking to the beach with this basket of tomatoes. And he didn't speak English. I didn't speak Croatian at the time. I'd been here 2 seconds. And he just offered his basket to me and was like, gesturing for me to take some tomatoes from him.
Oh.
And that's just not something that would have happened where I came from. And in the States, you would have thought like, okay, he's trying to trick me. These tomatoes are poison. He's going to try these tomatoes. Like it just wouldn't have been presented like that. And so I think that was really the biggest reason. Even when I was paying my monthly bills to my landlord, they would then give us a bunch of produce from their garden.
Oh, really? Oh, that is so sweet.
Yeah, so that it was just a completely different culture. And the fact that I had a view of the Adriatic Sea that I could look at every day didn't.
Of course, that helps.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. And where was your first stop then in Croatia?
Well, when I came here on the holiday, went to Zagreb for a day, Split for like 4 days, Hvar for 3 days, I think, and then Dubrovnik for 3 days. But I've always lived in Split.
And always in Split. Okay. And why did you wanted to then stay in Split?
Split felt like the right fit for me. I mean, it's kind of like the Goldilocks idea. It's not too big. It's not too small. I love that it has this historic center, that's like 1700 years old, but then it's surrounded by these kind of master planned communities that were built under Yugoslavia, which have their own appeal to me. I love brutalist architecture, but also these communities were built with communities in mind. A lot of them have big pedestrian areas, and part of the idea was that people can congregate in these open spaces and get to know their neighbors and be with each other, and kids don't have to cross a major street to go home from school. And you really have these kind of self-contained areas where you really don't have to leave the neighborhood for anything. And I love that. It's so close to the sea. You can easily get to the islands if you want. I feel like every time I leave the house, I run into people I know. It's just, it's the right size and place for me. And people in Split are known for being absolutely bonkers nuts. And I love that. I love it completely because I feel like I can be as eccentric as I want, and eccentricity is cherished in Split.
Okay. Did you then set up your business so you could stay? Or just tell me a little bit about the visa process you had.
For me particularly, mine was a bit unorthodox. So
okay.
I kind of slipped through the cracks in
Okay, you're lucky.
I don't know if I would call it lucky per se, but my story. People often ask me how I've been able to stay here so long, because it's very hard for non-EU citizens to stay as long as I have, but it's because I have an unorthodox story. So when I came to Croatia, I was married to an EU citizen, and we got divorced about 2.5 years in. And we had actually, when we moved here, Croatia wasn't in the European Union yet. So it wasn't like we could just walk in the door either. We had to open up a business to be able to stay here. And then once Croatia entered the EU, that was no longer necessary. So my residence was based on my spouse. So when we divorced, about 2.5 years in, there was nothing in the law that would allow me to stay. And I did not want to leave. I loved living here. And so thankfully, I had a really great lawyer who advocated for me on my behalf with the police. And so what they decided to do was they assembled a committee at the police station and they voted on me.
No way. That is so weird. I never heard that before.
Well, see, that's Croatia. Croatia, just because it's not written in the law doesn't mean that you can't make something happen.
Right.
They're human-based, relationship-based. So, I mean, that can also work against you, but can also work for you.
But and like so you did not commit any crimes, and they liked you. You know, they thought like she is a decent human being. She's allowed to stay. Kind of.
Yes. Yeah, pretty much. So they allowed me to stay, and then I got an opportunity to apply for long-term residence after about 6 years, and I did everything they asked me to do. Yes, so which is when I opened my company. So I've been doing Expat in Croatia, which is my business since 2013. It wasn't a business until 2018. So I had to open up a business so that I could meet the requirement to get long-term residence.
Okay. Oh wow. I mean I never heard that before, but that's
Neither had I.
Were you like super nervous?
Of course I was. I was very nervous that I was going to have to leave Croatia. And this was, I mean, like I said, after 3 days, I knew I wanted to be here forever. And so after 2.5 years, it was like absolutely terrifying to think that I was going to have to leave Croatia and go back to the US and start over completely.
Yeah. Do you remember though in that process, in the beginning, like what the hardest part was for you?
Well, I'd say probably learning the language has been the consistent challenge this entire time.
Yes.
So at the very start, I didn't even know where to begin. And for personal reasons, I wasn't able to really start classes or lessons or anything. So, I really had to rely on the kindness of Croatians to get by. So I had to start forming relationships really, really early, so that I could function, because at that time there were no expat groups to rely on. There were no foreigner communities. All of the resources online were all in Croatian, and they were not geared toward foreigners moving here. They didn't even understand at the police station why a foreigner would even be in there. I mean, this was really old school. This is a completely night and day situation to how it is now. So I really just had to be as gracious and humble and thankful as much as I could to form relationships, so I could figure things out as I went along, because there were no resources to help guide me through that.
Okay, and were there a lot of other expats at that time?
No. No, there were not. I mean, there was a handful for sure. I went to the very first expat meetup that Split had. There were maybe 12 of us, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. And a lot of them are still here. A lot of them are still here. But no, it's a pretty small community. As I said, it's very hard to stay here long term. So most of the foreigners who are here long term, they are married to Croatians.
Okay. And how is your language now?
Well, all right. I would categorize it as decent.
Decent. Can you say something in Croatian?
Okay.
You don't have to, but
I can. I will tell you my favorite Croatian phrase.
Okay.
Tko to more platit. So this, if you like very loosely translate it, it really means priceless. But you can also translate it, if you do it literally, it's like, who's going to pay for this? And a Croatian friend of mine, we were sitting on this big rock on Marian Hill, which is this big forested hill that sits next to the old city center of Split, looking out at the sea and the islands. And, it's just, for her, she's lived her entire life. For me, this is just night and day from what I'm used to. But even though she's been here her entire life, she still really appreciates how valuable this experience is. I mean, she's like, that's when she explained this phrase to me. She's like, Sara, you look at it like, it's almost like, how can this possibly be free?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think about that several times a year. It's really something that's super close to my heart, because I think growing up in America, you are taught to believe that money brings you happiness. But here in Croatia, that's not what it is. It's being in nature. It's appreciating the landscape and going on hikes and being near the sea and going on the islands. And all of these are completely free experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's so pretty too. I mean, I haven't been there. I only see pictures, but it always looks so stunning. And I mean, also, actually, you know what? This summer, Croatia was like overrun by millionaires, wasn't it? Because it's so pretty. That was in the news when I was in Germany. I saw it that just there are so many yachts in front of Dubrovnik because it's such a hot spot now.
Absolutely. I mean, I would say for at least the last 5 years, in Split, on Hvar, and Dubrovnik, it's just billionaire yachts, like one
That is
after the other after the
crazy.
other. Yeah.
So now they all want to go to the whatever cheap countries. I don't, but I mean, they go for it. I mean, everybody goes for the nice landscape, the beauty of the nature, the
Absolutely.
beauty of the architecture.
Yeah, it's just it doesn't get old. It doesn't
I
get
mean,
old
it
at
is
all.
already old. I mean, because history, but
Yes.
it is you can never get bored of it. That's what you mean, right?
No, that's what I mean. That's what
Yeah.
I mean. Yes, it gets older every day, but
Yeah.
yeah, it never, you never get bored with it. You never get tired of it. And you know what? Croatia is no longer a cheap country at
Oh, yeah,
all.
I guess.
But yeah, it's got some landscapes that really just don't even seem like they can possibly be real. And even in the height of summer, you can still find places where you're completely by yourself.
Uh, And tell me a little bit how your process was of finding like a social circle, like friends.
Okay. Well, that kind of evolved over the years because, like I said, there weren't expat groups when I first got here. So, in the early days, it was like there were so few of us that we were all just like, please be my friend. Like,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
we all just kind of gravitated to each other because we all needed friends. We needed someone who spoke our language or understood what we were going through. And, over the years, I'd say, something that's been a struggle for me personally, because I've been here so long, is, I become really good friends with somebody and then they leave.
Right. I know. Yes.
Yeah. And that's devastating. And those, people like me who've been here for so long, we've gotten to a point almost where we just don't even want to meet anybody new because we're
I
just
know.
they're going to leave. But I would say expat groups is the biggest way that I've met people. Now I meet people mostly through work because
Hmm.
I'm traveling around the country and going to conferences and events all the time, and so that's really how. And actually, I would say that not also through work, I have a lot of fans of what we do that contact me through social media or email and like, you want to go have a coffee, and so I
Uh-huh.
meet people all over Croatia that way as well. So it's been a variety of ways, and it's kind of evolved over time. But there was a one couple that I was very close to that left a few years ago. I was devastated. I cried for like a month. I was
Yeah.
about it, and that's when I was like, realize, I can't like stop meeting new people because they might leave. Because if I had not gone to the expat event where I met them, I never would have met them.
Yeah, that's true.
So we have to keep putting ourselves out there. We need to have support systems, and we shouldn't be afraid to meet new people because they might leave one day. You never know what's going
Yeah.
bring into your life.
Yeah, that's true. I do that too, because I always have the mindset we're only here for a certain amount of time. So I'm always like, I don't want to. What's the point? It's
Yeah,
like,
I feel you.
So yeah. But I still like have to do it. You
Yeah.
also want to make the best of your day-to-day life. You don't want to be lonely.
For sure. And everyone's different. Some people want a lot of friends. Some people just want to have like one or two. Some people don't want to have friends at
Yeah.
all. It's
Yeah,
really
yeah.
about what people want from their day-to-day life, for
Right,
sure.
that's true.
Yeah. I'm more of a quantity over, excuse me, quality over
Over
quantity
quantity.
person.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That's what I meant to
Yeah.
say. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so now it came up already like a few times, your work. So tell me about it. Tell me about expats in Croatia.
Sure. So I mentioned this earlier that when I got here, there were no resources, no expat groups. The government websites were still in Croatian, and they really didn't offer anything for foreigners who wanted to move to Croatia. Really, immigration at that time was still from other Balkan countries. It
Mhm.
was very rare for anyone outside the Balkans to move to
It's like,
Croatia.
why does anybody want to come here?
Yes, that is a
That's
question I
what.
get a lot. Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So after I started going through a few of the processes, I was like, why don't I like start a blog and I'll start writing my experiences with the bureaucracy and I'll kind of create these kind of step-by-step guides. So that way, if anybody comes after me, it'll be a little bit easier for them. And
Uh-huh.
I called it Expat in Croatia. So I launched that in 2013. So I actually bought the domain like 4 months after I got here and then launched it a year
Ah.
later. So I started doing that. And then after a few years, I started meeting some Croatians along the way who helped me do research so I could do more content. And then, people over time, people started contacting me with questions. And I did it outside my day job. This was just kind of a passion project that I did in my spare time, but I replied to everybody, you know,
Uh-huh.
and got them answers and did everything I could and even started like pen paling with some people, it was a way that they could be connected to Croatia. And it started to like really gain some traction after about 4 or 5 years because there
Mhm.
wasn't anything like that. Everybody was focused on tourism. Nobody
Uh-huh.
was focused on trying to help people.
Ah.
And then, about 5 years later is when I had to make a decision about turning it into a business so that I could stay here long term.
Mhm.
I sat down at a cafe and I wrote down a plan. I was like, okay, do you think I can actually make this work? Because if I was going to open up a company, I wanted to do something that I loved. And what I loved was talking about Croatia all day. I didn't love doing web development. Like, I've
Right.
been doing web development for, more than 15 years now, but it's not my passion. So I just took a chance and I opened up the company and turned Expat in Croatia into a business. And it took time. We didn't even have services until 2020. Hired my first
Uh-huh.
employee in 2019. And then it just kind of started to snowball after that.
Uh-huh.
Now we have a team of 10.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, we do all around the
Oh.
country. I'm really super proud of it. So we still have this huge database, like more than 500 free posts on the site that are guides to kind of like every single bureaucratic procedure you could possibly imagine, plus culture, language, daily life, transportation, like everything you need to know about
Uh-huh.
actually living in Croatia, getting citizenship, getting residence, that kind of thing, healthcare. But then we also have services that we offer. So we built this vetted network of Croatian professionals, lawyers, tax advisors, translators, so people know that they can talk to someone they can trust that's licensed to help them. And then also we do consulting services on our side. So that just means that we set up a call with somebody on Zoom and we answer all of their questions. So
Mhm.
that's what we do. And I stopped doing web development. I think 2 or 3 years ago now. This is my full-time job. So all I do
That's
is travel
awesome.
around the country, talk about Croatia, talk to people about Croatia, and it's the best job ever.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, if your project takes off, what else do you want? This is it's great.
It is. It's a real dream come true. I never really anticipated a country being my muse and caring about
Uh-huh.
a country so much that is not my own. I mean, I don't have any Croatian heritage at all, and sometimes that makes me sad. But I love this country so much, and
Uh-huh.
I every day we try and do stuff to give back. We do community projects and fundraisers for nonprofits, and
Nice.
really try to highlight entrepreneurship and volunteerism. And it's so it's not just, hey, this is a business so that we can make money. It's really important to us that everything we do is to like give back to Croatia and
Mhm.
help people love Croatia in the right way and not just come here and take advantage of it.
Mhm. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. And so what is one question or what is the question people ask you the most?
There's really two. One is why. Why on earth would you move here when we want to go to America? And do you own a gun?
Ah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
yeah,
And no, I
of
don't
course.
own a gun. I don't own a gun.
I
That
guess
was
I
that
did.
question. But yeah, those two questions I probably get in equal measure very often.
Okay. And what is a question that you get from the people you talk to who you consult, like about Croatia?
Well, the biggest question is how do I stay in Croatia forever?
Right. Okay.
Because
Mhm.
it's really challenging as a non-EU citizen to stay in Croatia longer than a year. It's really hard. If you're not married
Mhm.
to a Croatian or an EU citizen, it's pretty tough unless you work for a Croatian company. And not everybody, wants to do that. And I appreciate it. I mean, I love Croatia, so I understand why people would want to stay here longer. But it's my hands are tied. Like I don't make the rules. They
Right.
have immigration rules that are defined based on what it is that they want for Croatia, and they do want to protect Croatia for Croatians. I'm not saying that
Yeah.
everything should be the way that it is, but there is some sense behind it. So that is the most common question I get, and it frustrates a lot of people.
Yeah. Did you have any downsides though of moving abroad?
Well, I'd say just one. I mean, I think the biggest thing people have trouble with is that they miss their family and friends.
Mhm.
And I'm no different. Now, I made a conscious decision to move away. And, I have friends all over the country and I have family in different places. So even if I did stay in Texas, I still would have to travel to see people.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's something that should really hold anybody back from moving abroad if that's something that they really want.
Mhm.
But I think that the downside that I hadn't really experienced until the last few years is when I have a relative that's dying or has died,
Yeah.
because you can't just, even if you get on a plane an hour after you find out what has
Yeah.
happened, you're still not going to get there in time, most likely. And so I've had to make some really hard decisions in the last few years, and I've had to unfortunately not be there in times when I've wanted to be there. I don't have any regrets about any decisions I've made. I made all the best ones. I did everything I could to really appreciate all my family and friends. I make regular calls. We stay in touch constantly, and I have flown back for certain emergencies. But it's like you can't be there for everything, and it's something
Mhm.
that you just have to accept.
Yeah. But it's also similar if you I mean, especially when you're in America, such a big country, you would miss out even if you just live on the other side of the country. Like if you're in Texas, you would also miss out if you would move to Illinois or Wisconsin or somewhere else.
You're absolutely right. When I lived in California, my grandfather died in Florida. It was a 6-hour flight.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's the same distance as going from New York to London.
yeah, it is.
So yeah, it's a risk. Anytime that you move away from the place where your family is,
Yeah.
there's going to be that risk that you are not going to be there for something either really tragic, or even something really positive. Like I couldn't be there for my aunt's graduation from college. She went to back to college at 67. It was a huge deal, but I couldn't be there for that. And that, that was really a sad thing that I had to miss it. But you have to make some hard choices when you live abroad.
Yeah, that's true. And sorry, you got interrupted, but I still wanted to say about your business. Can you tell the website? So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So it's expatincroatia.com, and we're on all the social channels at Expat in Croatia. So it's really easy to find.
Yeah, and I will also make sure that there's a link in the show notes so people can find you. Just click on it directly from this podcast.
Awesome.
Yes. And what is, so tell me, one of the favorite things you have in Croatia besides the people are being so nice?
Oh, okay. I just find life to be easier here. It just, every day just feels like everything's close. I don't have to leave my neighbor. Everything's like 45-second walk away. I don't have to leave my neighborhood
Nice.
unless I need a major appliance. Like everything's here. Even going to the city center, it's just a 20-minute walk. It's safe, so I don't have to worry about being attacked or anything like that. It's just the area. It's hard for me to name one thing. I know you asked me for one thing, but that's a difficult thing, because to me, if I had to wrap it up into one nice package, it would be quality of life. Like quality of life here is very high. Now, I understand that some might say, well, Sara, it's like, yeah, but it's hard to get a job and salaries aren't that great and the cost of living is really high. It's like, yeah, but you know what? That is a problem in a lot of places in the world. Anyway, so I would say really it's quality of life. They especially in this part of the country where I live, because the culture, even though Croatia is a small country, surface area wise, population wise, the culture is very nuanced and varied depending on the part of the country you're in. In the part of the country I'm in, where I'm in the South, I'm in Dalmatia, and here they pride quality of life. Like it is just above everything else,
Okay.
Work is like way down here.
Okay.
Quality of life is like way up here. So coming from the States where it's like your whole, you're born to work. That is how I was trained as a child, is like your value comes from your ability to work and make money. And, I when I lived in New York, I would walk down the street just staring at my phone with my BlackBerry, just navigating tourists and people on the street and just going so fast. And then here I've been forced to slow down, in every aspect of my life. And that has brought me this sense of calm that I really never thought I'd have. There are things that would have upset me or irritated me or made me anxious before that don't anymore. And that is,
Was it something you had to learn though?
Oh, yes. It did not happen overnight. I mean, it's something I'm still learning. I feel like around the 10-year mark, I really started to transition in kind of a big way, which was a little interesting. But no, it's been this whole 13-year period where I've slowly evolved, predominantly because Croatians were like, you evolve.
Yeah.
We have a lot of opinions about how you need to live your life. And that was really hard at the beginning, because I don't like being told what to do. Nobody likes being told what to do. And they were telling me to do these things that to me made no sense. But then over time, I was like, oh, but that does make sense. Now I see why it makes sense. And so just bit by bit, they chipped away at me, And so I lost these kind of traits that I had before, and they got replaced with more Croatian or Dalmatian traits. So now I'm this kind of interesting hybrid. And I think this place taught me how to take a real vacation where I wasn't working. And that was a first for me.
That's nice. So you just know how to relax and totally shut everything else out?
I would say I'm about 75% there. So
Okay. All
maybe
right.
another 7 years or so, about the 20-year mark, maybe I'll be able to take a vacation like a Croatian does, where it's like any email that comes in during this 3-week period will be automatically deleted.
Right. But but it's harder when you're self-employed, isn't it? If you would be
Oh,
just like employed by somebody else, then sure, like whatever, like somebody else take it, but you're the boss.
for sure. Absolutely. And that's a great point to make, because when you own your own company, you never stop thinking about your
Yeah,
company.
exactly. Because I
Yeah.
also had a company and like you still check your emails like all the time.
Yeah, and I had to find a way to, because that really was eating away at me probably 2 or 3 years ago, when I was really still trying to build the company into being something sustainable. And I was driving myself crazy. And so I had to find a way to implement some kind of limits and kind of change my habits, so I could find a way that I could run the business without driving myself crazy and still
Mm.
have some off time. But you know what? The biggest reason I'm even able to take off time is because I work with such incredible people. So I can take some time off, and it just keeps running,
Yeah.
because they all love their jobs. They love what they do. They love the company, believe in what
Uh-huh.
we're doing. And I'm grateful that I get to work with them, because without them, I wouldn't be able to take time off.
Right, exactly. So it's good. You can rely on your team. That's super important for
Absolutely.
for staying sane. And you said earlier, like the people are berserk. Is this also like part of quality of life?
Did you say berserk?
Did you not? Didn't you say that?
Well, I said bonkers nuts.
Bonkers.
But yes, I think that would also mean berserk for sure. You know what? I haven't heard anyone say the word berserk in a really long time, so thank you. That is such a good word. Yes, I would say it is part of the quality of life for sure. Actually, when it comes to this, it kind of reminds me of Austin a little bit, that kind of keep Austin weird thing. I mean, Split's
Mm,
very much like that. We have a lot of like kind of local, almost like local celebrities, because they're just, they're outside the norm. We had this guy, he sadly died a few years ago, but he was dressed like Santa Claus year round.
oh, okay. Okay, so this is what you mean. Okay.
Yes. And so
Uh-huh.
people like in some cities, people like that might be ostracized, or here in Split, they're kind of cherished. They're part of
Yeah.
the community. And being here is how I was really able to find myself. I have had really horrible social anxiety for my entire life since I was a child. And through doing expat in Croatia, but also living in Croatia, I've been able to work through a lot of that. And so being here in this kind of place where I don't feel like I'm being judged, that I can be exactly who I am, it has allowed me to really showcase how weird I am, because I am a very proud weirdo, and I don't want to be like caged or have to be pretend that I'm something that I'm not. And I don't feel like I have to do that here. I feel like I can be exactly who I am, and it is okay. So yeah, that's definitely a part of quality of life.
Yeah, that's cool. But it's funny that you said it. Like, now, you talked about the guy who dressed up as Santa Claus. I
Yes.
remember, like in San Francisco, there were the twins that always dressed up in like leopards in a leopard outfit, and they were like already like in their late 90s.
Oh wow.
Yes, and here in Austin, there's this guy. He rides on his horse in a Santa Claus costume, but he's not dressed up as Santa Claus all year round. But I think he rides on his horse on like through Austin.
Good for him.
Yeah, yeah,
Be true to yourself.
yeah, yeah. And tell me about the food in Croatia.
Sure. So I mentioned that, Croatia may be small, but it's kind of very diverse in its culture, and the food is no different. So the food is very different depending on the part of the country that you're
Mm-hmm.
in. So I really love Dalmatian. I love all Croatian food. I have not had a Croatian dish that I have not liked. I think it's
Uh-huh.
all wonderful, but it all is very different. So in the South, where I live, it's very fish focused. So a lot of grilled fish. There's this black risotto that is one of my most favorite
Mm.
things that has ever existed, and it's a risotto made with cuttlefish, which is kind of like a squid. It's also an invertebrate, and it also has an ink sac. So they use that ink to color the risotto black.
So is it similar to paella?
No, not at all. It's a risotto that is colored black, and it has a lot of cheese in it, and it has big pieces of this cuttlefish. It's not fishy at all. It tastes like the sea, and it's so glorious. I have a friend, every couple of months we go and we try a different black risotto. So we've been doing this for like 3 years, and we never have two black risottos twice. So that's great. There's also a dish down here, which is my number one Croatian dish, which is called Sara, which is a beef that is marinated in red wine vinegar for a few days, and then it's
Mm-hmm.
cooked with berserk, which is a Dalmatian dessert wine, and dried prunes and root vegetables, and you make this kind of like really rich wine-filled gravy, and it's served with gnocchi. It's when it's well done, it is unbelievable, but you can only get the best ones. They're homemade. Restaurants will try and do one, but it's never as good as a homemade one. But
Mm-hmm.
there's one that I always think about, and it's just making my mouth fill with saliva just thinking about it right now. I had it at a winery, and it just my eyes roll back in my head. Like it's just
Uh,
it's so good. There's a lot of hearty dishes, like up in Istria, which is like my favorite part of Croatia. I go there to unwind. It's a lot of truffle dishes. They
Truffles.
Yeah, they
Oh.
have truffles up there, and it's just like they're giving them away. Like my favorite dish is they lightly scramble eggs in olive oil, and then they put a lot of shaved truffles on top, and then they drizzle olive oil on top, and that's it. And when I had it the
Uh-huh.
first time, I was like, I feel like I shouldn't be allowed to eat this. Like this is just too luxurious. How is this a thing that I get to eat? And I look forward to it every year I go up there. And in the north, it gets a little bit heartier. They have what's called strukli, which is this kind of, it's like a pastry kind of, but not in like a flaky sense. It's more doughish with like lots of cream and cheese, and every family does it differently. So you can see like 1,000 different variations of it. And they don't really do spicy food in Croatia, except for in the northeastern part of the country, which is Slavonia. They do a spicy sausage called kulin, which reminds me a lot of chorizo.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I thought, but I've never been there, or like I've never um thought about it too much, but I thought it's very like Eastern European food, like meaty cabbage, potatoes. That's what I
absolutely.
assumed. But then it's also
It's
so
not
close to Italy, so maybe there's also like a big Mediterranean influence.
It's a hybrid of those two. So we definitely have lots of potatoes. They do potatoes in a lot of different ways,
Uh-huh.
gnocchi and boiled and mashed. They do a lot of cabbage. So right now it's winter, so we have sarme, which is like a minced meat that is wrapped in a fermented cabbage roll.
Uh-huh.
But then during summer, they do pujene paprika, which is a stuffed pepper. So it's a
Uh-huh.
very similar mincemeat filling, and then that's cooked in like a kind of a winey tomato sauce with, of course, potatoes. But yes, I mean, Italy controlled parts of Croatia for hundreds of years. So there are definitely a lot of Italian influences, and we have pizza everywhere. We have
Uh-huh.
excellent pizza here. So
Okay.
that's definitely part of it. And up in Istria was part of Italy until just after World War II.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's the part of the country where they have the truffles, and there's a lot of Italian influence in their cuisine.
Okay. But also the language sounds very similar to Italian. Yeah, you have that Italian sound of it. I mean, I only
Oh,
hear it when you say it. It's
yeah. I'll take my word for it. You know what? I don't know. It's going to depend because the language changes so drastically from town to town, island to island, sometimes even neighborhood to neighborhood or hilltop to hilltop. So up in the northeastern, it sounds a little bit more Slavic, and in
Mm-hmm.
the West, it sounds a little bit more Italian. Down here, there's definitely some Italian influences, but not as much as there is in the northwestern part of the country. So it just kind of depends on the dialect, on whether or not you hear more Italian or more Slavic roots, more
Okay.
Hungarian. It varies quite a bit.
So it really depends, like what area you are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one tough thing about living in Split is the Split dialect is very, very strong. It's
Mm.
very different from the standard Croatian. So if you live
Mm-hmm.
here, you have to learn two languages at once.
Ah, okay. So was it when you went, you learned like standard Croatian, and then you had to get used to different words, different dialects?
Yes, absolutely. So I learned standard Croatian. My teacher will not allow me to speak any dialect,
Uh-huh.
which, I understand and appreciate. But, I live in Split. I have friends who are from Split. And,
Mm-hmm.
when you're here, if you don't speak the Split dialect, you are going to stand out,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I have to kind of program my brain to kind of switch when I leave Split. But that being said, because I've been here so long, I speak standard Croatian, but with a Split accent.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that also makes it a little bit difficult. Yeah.
But that makes sense.
It does make sense. It does make sense. It's a journey, and I think for a long time I really beat myself up because I'm not farther enough, or I'm not at the level that everyone thinks I should be at for being here so long. But you know
Right.
what? I've done the absolute best that I can. Like every
Right.
day, I do the best that I can. I speak as much Croatian as I can, but we all learn differently and at different speeds, and we all have different capabilities. So it's important that no matter where somebody lives anywhere in the world, it's important that you don't shame yourself and you just do the best that you can.
Right. But can you also read the newspapers
I
in
can. I mean, I can't get 100% of it, but I can get the gist.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah,
Great. And then I have one other question. Is there something that you don't get used to?
that I don't get used to. Yeah. So, so here they dress for the calendar, not the weather, which
Uh-huh.
is sometimes frustrating for me because the weather is very unpredictable pretty much all over the world now. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And so sometimes it can be really warm in the winter. And
Mhm.
if it's really warm in the winter, I'm not going to leave my house in a sweater with an undershirt and a big jacket and a scarf. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going
Yeah.
to do it. But they will because they have
Uh-huh.
a strict calendar. So
Okay.
yeah, winter is from November 1st until May 1st. And then
Uh-huh.
they switch to summer clothes. And that is literally how it goes every single year.
Really? So they're really following the rules,
They
their
are really
rules.
following the rules. Okay, so why does this bother me? This bothers me because if a Croatian thinks you are not dressed warm enough, it will make them uncomfortable. And they will comment on it multiple times. So
Okay.
I've had people, like, I'll be meeting someone for a coffee, and before they even say hi to me, they'll say, "Are you cold?" I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm a grown woman. I know how to dress myself. If I were cold, I'd be wearing a jacket.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that is the thing that frustrates me. And the best kind of example I can give you is some years ago now, we had this super warm weather in March. I mean, it was summer beach weather.
Mhm.
And so my American friend and I were like, you know what? We're going to go to the beach. We're going to get a tan because it is super hot. And
Uh-huh.
we went down to the beach, and there was nobody else on the beach except for us. And right behind us was this cafe bar, and the terrace was packed with Croatians, and they're all in their big puffer jackets
And
and
they're
their scarves
sweating
and their hats.
probably.
And they're looking at us like we're nuts, and we're looking at them like they're nuts.
Yeah.
Like, I don't get it. I don't get it. After all this time, I can't get on board with that part. But I will say I have adjusted my clothing to make sure that no one hassles me about being cold.
But you know what? I have adhered to. It bothers me that people cannot dress for the weather. Yeah. Because like it's cold here, you know, like in Celsius, let's say it's like 5 degrees or something. It's pretty cold. And then I always, in the mornings, I drive by the high school and I see kids like in shorts and t-shirts. And I'm like, it's cold. Like, come on, at least put on like a sweater and like some long pants. Like I see like kids at elementary school, they come out in flip-flops. You know, it's like, I don't know, because I mean, I know there is like clothes for weather. So like, why don't you put it on?
Hey, that I completely understand. I mean, there are some Americans I know that they'll wear shorts year round. They don't care what the temperature is. They'll wear flip-flops year round, don't care what the temperature is. And that I don't quite understand. But
yeah, no, that makes me always mad because I'm always sitting in the car driving by and I'm like, put on some clothes.
Yeah, I guess it's a bit of a double standard.
Yeah. So we're almost coming to an end, but I always ask this, is there something that you still miss?
Yeah, I mean, we already mentioned family, friends, which I think is probably going to be everyone's number one. But if I had to set that aside, I'd say Texan food. Absolutely.
Like
Tex-Mex, Texas barbecue. Like, I cannot tell you how much I miss that stuff. And so when I go back to Texas to visit, I just eat all of it. I eat all the queso, all the brisket, all the tacos, all the enchiladas. I just shove it in my face until I'm sick. And then I don't get it for another year or so. But yes, I miss that terribly. And anytime I see some place that claims they have something Texan on the menu, usually I don't order it because I know it's going to make me upset, or I order it and then I get upset. So
exactly.
I just make it at home, but not everything can be made at home. We don't have the same ingredients, and so yeah, food for sure, hands down.
Okay. All right. I think we covered everything. Thank you. Thank you for being on my podcast. Thanks for being a great guest.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this a lot, Victoria. Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you. Yeah, that was Sara from Expats in Croatia, and you will find the link in the show notes. And check out their website. You will find so many important and helpful informations there. So definitely check it out. Expats in Croatia, or in the show notes. All right, that was it from this week. I hope you liked this episode. I enjoyed it very much. And as I said in the intro, if you want to support this podcast, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/worldscollidepod. The link is in the show notes. And you can also reach out to me if you want to be a guest on this podcast, or let me know anything else, what you liked or what you didn't like. I'm always happy to hear from everybody. Or you can also find me on Instagram. But reach out. I'm always happy to hear from you guys. All right. So until then, bye.